Hello everyone. So I'm back today to talk to you about how to shuffle a deck of tarot cards. So to some people that might seem like, well, why does that need to be explained? You just shuffle them. Um, if you're from my generation, I'm a child of the 70s. We used to play with playing cards because we didn't have YouTube. so um, so learning how to shuffle was something that a lot of my friends and I did. But for example, my kids don't know how to shuffle on a table, the fancy way where you riffle them all together, which I'll demonstrate later. So there are many different ways to shuffle. But when I first started learning how to read tarot cards, in all of the beginner books that I read, it just said to shuffle. And then there were instructions about how many times you should cut it, or maybe how many times you should shuffle. And so everyone had their own suggestions and their own ways of doing it. And so do I, and so do all the tarot readers that I know. So I have my favorite ways, definitely. I have some different suggestions, some different tips for you if you're just starting out. And in the end, like anything else with reading tarot cards, you have to do what feels right. So try lots of different methods and then, do what feels right to you. And that might change day to day. So today it might be one way, and then tomorrow you might feel pulled to do it in a totally different way. So I'll start by just showing you some of my decks. So this is the Saki Saki Tarot, and it's one of my favorites by my friend Monica Kiyosaki. And as you can see, it's a really nice size. Thank you, Monica. So I have small hands, so it's much easier for me to shuffle this deck. And so normally the way that I do it is just from one hand to the other. So I'm grabbing the cards behind, grabbing a big stack, and then I put a couple in front, a couple in front, a couple in front. So I'll keep doing this until something tells me to stop. So just intuitively, I'll feel like, okay, they're done, they're shuffled. It's time to cut the deck. So that's how I shuffle these cards. It's the best way for me because I can riffle this card this size. I can riffle these together like I would a set of playing cards, but I don't like doing that because it bends my cards. And I like to take pretty pictures of my cards, and I want them to lie flat on the table, so I don't use that method. So this is a deck that many of you are probably familiar with. This is the Wild Unknown Tarot. And as you can see, these are considerably larger, and the cardstock on these is thicker. So it's a significantly larger deck. It's still what I would consider like a medium-sized deck, but it's still pretty big. And for my hands, it's definitely trickier. I definitely have to focus more when I'm shuffling these. So, but again, I can do it the same way. And I definitely wouldn't want to do the riffling method because because of the way the cardstock is, I feel like they would really get damaged that way, so I wouldn't do it. And then we have a deck that I recently fell back in love with. This is the Goddess Tarot. It's really pretty. Oops, it's upside down. Well, some of them are. Anyway, so this deck is all about the divine feminine. And as you can see, the cardstock is nice and thin, right? But the cards are pretty big. So again, I would use the same method with these. This might actually give me a hard time though, right? Like I can sort of barely get my hand around it here. So I would do what's called like the puddling method, or some people call it like the wash method, which I kind of like because the idea is that you're cleansing your cards as you shuffle them. You're sort of removing the energy from the last reading that you did with them, and you're like refreshing them for this next reading. So I do like that method with these cards, so I'm also going to show you that. So those are some explanations of why I like to shuffle certain cards certain ways. How many times do you do it? Some people say, you know, mathematically the number is 10, I think, because that ensures that the cards are fully shuffled, and so you've really removed the traces of the reading that you did before with it. So you can try that. You can try 10 shuffles and see if you feel good after 10, if you feel like they're really well shuffled. Let's see. Oh, something else that people ask me about is flippers. So while you're shuffling your deck, and you're paying attention and you're focusing and you're meditating, you're thinking about your question, you're thinking about your situation, you're asking your spirit guides to help you. You are focusing on the answers and the information that's for your highest good or for the person's highest good. And so you're, you know, doing your thing, whatever works for you. And oh, one of them flips over and makes itself known to you. Sometimes they flip and then they flip back in, but if a card wants to be known, it'll flip over entirely and it'll make sure that you see it. It might just land on top of the deck, or it might land on the desk, or the table that you're working at, on the floor, but it'll go face up and you'll see it. And you can't ignore it, and you shouldn't ignore it. I've tried ignoring those in the past and they just pop right up again, or the same message comes through in a different way. So it doesn't make sense to ignore those cards. That's what works for me. That's what I suggest to you. But again, you might have a totally different experience, and that's valid too. So, okay, so I'll show you those different techniques on the table. I'm going to turn the camera around so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah. All right, so I will demonstrate the 3 methods that I talked about. I'll start with my Saki Saki deck, which is the deck that fits my hands perfectly. So this is a deck that can be shuffled using the riffling method, the traditional method that you see people using with playing cards. But I don't love it for tarot cards because it bends them eventually. And I like to take, ooh, so loud. I like to take pictures of my cards, as you know, and I like them to lie flat on the table. So while this is an effective method of shuffling them, I think it's kind of damaging to my cards, so I don't like to use it, but I'll show it to you again, and I'll turn them around in the other direction so it'll undo that little bend that I just created in my cards. But you know, you've seen this before. It took me a long time to learn how to do this when I was little, but I'm still not very good at it. So that is that method. And then we have the method that I use every day with all of my cards. This happens to be my preferred method, is to grab a bunch from the back. So you're holding a couple of them in one hand, and then the rest are in the other. And then you're just dropping them bit by bit in front. For some reason, I just like the sound that this makes, and I find it's really good while I'm meditating on the question or the situation that I'm doing a reading about, whether it's for me or if it's for the other person. A lot of the time while I'm doing this, this is when I'm talking with my client about their question or their situation, and getting clarity about what exactly their question is, and I'll talk about that in another video about how to either form a question on your own or to help someone form a question. It's very important. So that's this method. And again, you know, it works with this deck. It would work with the Saki deck also because of the size of the cards, because of the way that they fit in my hands. And again, I would just do this until I feel like, okay, they're ready, I'm ready, we're ready. You know, we can start the reading. There's just something that clicks intuitively for me. So that's how I shuffle those. And so here's the bigger deck that I showed you before, the Goddess deck. So this is really big in my hands, no matter how I try to hold it. So even that, my preferred method that I just showed you, is really difficult for me. So when a deck is really big like this, I will use the pooling or washing or puddling method. And I like to use this figure 8 motion. Hopefully you have more space. I like to do this on a bigger, clean table, so they can really get shuffled. But I do like this a lot. I really feel like they get well shuffled this way. And I also like to do this when I have a brand new deck and I'm really trying to reset its energy. And really trying to get to know the deck and to connect with it. I really like using that method of shuffling. So brand new decks, really big decks, works really well. So once I get these together, I will show you what I do next, right? So been shuffling, meditating, or talking, okay? We feel like we're ready, the cards are ready, the universe is ready, we're ready. Okay, so back together. What I'll do is I will cut the deck if I'm doing the reading for myself or someone else, or I will have the person do it so that their energy can be part of the reading also. So I will just grab some, put it to the right, and then grab a bunch more and put it to the right, so that I end up with 3 piles like this. I always gravitate towards the middle one. I have been for a long time. I used to do it different ways, and then I would put the deck back together. Some people like to, you know, they cut the deck and then they will place their hand over the different piles and just see like where they get a feel for which one they should start with. Some people say they feel like a buzzing energy. Some people say that there's like a heat coming off that one, and so they'll go with that one. But I just always, my habit is to grab the middle one, and that's what's always worked for me. So that's what I do. And yeah, then I would begin laying cards out for the spread. So I hope this gave you guys some ideas on how to shuffle your own tarot cards, and you should try different methods, try different ways of doing it, and see what works for you. Trust your intuition always, and find something that feels right. Maybe you want to pick up a routine, something that'll sort of like get you into reading mode. That's the way that I like to think about it. If you have any questions for me, please ask me below in the comments. Take care. Bye.